Hey, this is Derek Murphy. A couple months ago, I made a video talking about Kindle Vella and my expectations for it. It just went live a couple of days ago, so I've been scrambling to finish some of the projects that I had thought about working on this summer. I've got some of them up. I'm going to quickly in this video talk through what Kindle Vella looks like right now. What are some of the doubts or limitations or fears I have about it, some of the challenges I've come up across trying to publish on Kindle Vella, and also some of the things I like, because I think there are some cool things that Amazon is offering. So right now, because Kindle Vella is so new, there's not a lot of readers, and it's going to be sort of a popularity contest, which is one of my fears that I mentioned earlier, in that right now there's not a lot of reviews. All that you really have is people can buy tokens, and if they buy tokens to unlock episodes of a serial, they will earn a fave, which is a little crown icon, and every week they earn a fave that they can give to the story they like best. So with the navigation here, this is what Kindle Vella looks like on my desktop, but I'll mention that this is really meant for smartphones. This is an app. This is for people who will just binge a book on, their commute to work or when they have some downtime. The benefit or the attraction of serialized fiction is that you can just read a quick episode at a time. I'll talk a little bit more about what kind of stories are going to work well on Vellum, but I've already had people in my audience say, this is too much. This is overwhelming. I just want to stick to my Kindle. But the reason Amazon moved into this space is because other businesses have already proven that there is an audience and a demand for serialized fiction platforms like this. This may never be a huge deal. This may just be Amazon trying to shut down competition by launching their own similar platform and hopefully luring authors away from those other platforms, so that the audience that already exists, they just want to grab some of that market share or else disrupt that market completely. Which means even if this is not a moneymaker for Amazon, they may spend some money to try to get it rolling, just to take away market share from other companies. So that's why I've already bought some tokens, but anybody can grab 200 free tokens. Amazon's basically giving away free money to try to attract new readers to get familiar with the platform. So if I click over to my Kindle Library, which hopefully you can see here, this is kind of what it looks like. It's still in beta. I can start a story. I can create a new episode or manage my story, which will give me details. It's being weird not displaying my covers right now. It seems a little bit glitchy, and it takes some time to upload and approve stories. It goes through this whole process of publishing, but in review or draft versus live. It kind of takes a little bit of time. I've set up 3 stories that are live that each have 3 episodes. When you are creating a new story, I'll go into one of these so you can see what it looks like. If I go into create new episode, you can have an optional episode title. I don't usually label my chapters or title my chapters, but it looks better rather than saying episode 1, episode 2, if you do have a title for every section. So I'm going to go through and fix that up so it does look a little bit nicer. Episodes can be within 600 or 5,000 words, and readers will pay not for every episode the same amount of tokens, but depending on the word count. So I think probably it makes sense to have shorter episodes so that you have more content. So instead of like 3 episodes, I could have 10 episodes if instead of 3,000 words per episode, I was doing 1,000 words per episode. However, you have to give them enough content that they feel satisfied and that they want more. So you also want to end on cliffhangers, but you don't want it to be such a dramatic cliffhanger after so short a period of text that they're not hooked yet or invested in the story. Because even if it's like not very many tokens to unlock the next one, they have to still want to make that their choice. If you haven't hooked their attention yet, if it's too short, or they feel like they're getting ripped off because they were just getting into it and you're already putting up a price wall where they have to pay more tokens, that may feel jarring to them. My chapters tend to be about 3,000 words. However, my chapters tend to have two scenes. So I really could have a 1,500 word scene that ends on a strong hook, because all of my scenes, end sort of on a mini cliffhanger, which is just a moment of change. And all of my fiction, I like writing up until the moment of change when something happens, and then I stop, to make sure the read through is really good. So I could break this up shorter, but like I mentioned, while you want them to keep reading, you also don't want them to feel pressured. You can write your episode directly in here, which is sort of interesting. You can also copy and paste. However, I found that doesn't look very good. So what I've been doing is, in my big manuscript, I will save the section that I want as like chapter 1, chapter 2, and then I will import the text here, and then it looks kind of okay. There's not a lot of good formatting you can do. You can't do indents. All of the paragraphs have kind of a space between them. So that's something to be aware of. Even if you've, formatted your book with paragraph, there shouldn't be, in a normal book, there wouldn't be spaces between paragraphs. It's not professional. So if you do have a manuscript that has spaces between paragraphs and then you upload it here, it's going to have double spaces between paragraphs. It looks kind of weird. So format normally, regularly, but know that you really can't control your indents or tabs or spaces between your paragraphs. It's going to look kind of the same way. I think I also tested, normally you would want justified text for even a Kindle e-reader, but here it seems like that's not really an option. It seems like it's all ragged left. And then you have the option of adding an author note, which would be a little note that goes at the end of your episode, and stands out in its own little box. So I'll show you what that looks like. So if I go back here to Kindle Vella's main page, it shows me how many tokens I have. These are the stories that I've favorited. When you're reading a story, you can favorite the story. So let me just show you what one of mine looks like. And this one has a crown. So I think the people who collect the 200 free tokens don't get the crowns, but if you upgrade and buy any tokens, they'll immediately reward you with a free crown you can give away to a story that you like. So one of mine has earned one. This is only showing with 2 episodes still, even though it actually has 3 episodes. It's been really slow. 24 hours or something, but that feels really slow when things are starting to get going. So here now it's showing 3 episodes for whatever reason. So I can follow the story. It'll show up on my home dashboard. I've got my 3 episodes, but as you can see, it's got episode 1, episode 2. That doesn't look as good as if I had, words there instead of episode 1. So I'm going to go back and change that. And then it asked me to continue because I've already read the last couple episodes. This is what it sort of looks like. So on the desktop, this is, not really ideal, but this is really meant for like reading on your phone, where the punctuation or the formatting doesn't matter so much. It's just broken up in a way that allows you to skim and read really quickly. So I'm sure they've been intentional about, how to make that work. So at the bottom here is where you have a note from the author, and then you can say, whatever you want to say. This is a little bit tricky. You could either try to brand yourself with a personal share or story, something memorable. You could try to do marketing or advertising, like follow me on my website or sign up to my email list for a free story. What I am kind of trying to do in the first couple episodes, especially, I assume they don't know about me or care about me, and they're probably not going to take any action. What I really want them to do is just read the next story. And also, while this isn't terrible, this is exactly what every other author is going to say. Read the next story, fave, like, whatever. So you want this ideally to be unique enough without really asking for very much, at least until you've gone through a few episodes. When you're publishing on Kindle Vella, I'm pretty sure you can choose one category and one subcategory. So I think I've chosen like fantasy young adult, or maybe vice versa. So these up here are the category tags, but it's still a little unclear. Like once you click into category, then you get the top faved. So these are the ones that have earned the most crowns already. And you can see that most of these have more episodes. So at least 7 or 8, but up to like 20. There are a few of these that have less. So I obviously need to get more episodes up really quickly. But it's also not totally clear, like if this is a ranking system or how many crowns these have, or how they're deciding which of these books are performing well, if it has to do with likes or how many episodes it has or whatever. And while I'm here, I will probably also mention that it's a little bit of a Wild West in terms of the covers. Um, the nice thing about Kindle Vella is that you don't have to pay for a book cover design. You don't have to get your book formatted. It really lowers the cost to entry. The danger is that a lot of people are just grabbing whatever images online. Ideally, they would find a good image from a stock photo site and use that. Cost a couple bucks, that's great. But I can recognize immediately that a lot of the covers that people are using are actually stolen from fan art or from DeviantArt or from a Google search or whatever. Some of them look okay, some of them don't look very good at all. That doesn't really seem to be a big deal. The other nice thing is you can get basically a character and a background. But since this is the Wild West, the competition is not really there yet. You can stand out by having a great cover, which is what I've tried to do. But a lot of these are just super simple images that aren't really great, but are enough for now. I think eventually, what's going to happen pretty quickly is that whatever's featured on the top is going to stay in the top because that's the only thing that's going to stand out. So, when people are browsing for new stuff, they're just going to find what's already performing well. Everything else is going to be invisible. So a few people might make a lot of money because they're there and they have the content, which is, why I was excited about Kindle Vella. I think it's an opportunity, whether or not it takes off long term, for some authors to potentially do really well. I'm coming a little bit late. I don't have the episodes up that I had wanted. This summer, I hope to finish 2 long episodic series. Basically, I'm not performing well right now. It's too opaque to even see how my books are doing. Like I can't find my books in these categories yet because there's no ranking system. Like some of these books, this is page one of 40 in fantasy. So this is popular tags in fantasy. So the other thing I didn't mention was there's the categories which I clicked on. There are also popular tags. So once you are in a category, you can self choose, whatever tags you want. So I noticed the popular tags and I changed my tags to fit. So I chose magic and fantasy because I know these are the popular tags already. And I definitely want to show up on this first page where people are, this is the system for better or worse that is shown to readers. They're going to be clicking on these categories because that's what's there. So I want my books to show up in these categories under magic or fantasy. But then you have top faved in fantasy. And these 3 look pretty good. They've got crowns, they've got a lot of episodes and a lot of likes. But then there's a lot of other stuff with 1 episode and 1 like that's on the top of this list for whatever reason, which is, a little confusing, a little interesting. I don't really know what's going on with that ranking system or how Amazon is managing these things. It says it's sorted by popularity. So this would seem to indicate that a lot of people are downloading these books, but then, they don't have very many likes. They don't have a crown. So who knows what's going on there? Average customer rating is kind of too early because the other weird thing about Kindle Vella is that these are unfinished stories. So it's unlikely that a reader is going to review a book that's uncompleted, that only has a few chapters out. So at least for the moment, none of these books have any reviews, which is fine because you wouldn't really expect them to. But the popularity rating seems to be broken or weird or something. But I did mention earlier, that's the other kind of interesting thing about Kindle Vella. You could launch something and just show up and just, get a lot of visibility for whatever reason, because it's sort of a broken no man's land right now until they figure out how things are going to work. You might get a bunch of visibility just for putting some content up there. So I expected this mostly to be sort of a popularity contest. I thought that the established authors who have a big backlist would show up immediately because they would get the most crowns. That doesn't seem to be the case outside of this top faved, which seems to be a ranking based on the number of crowns, but they don't really show you how many crowns any of this have. And these numbers, these number rankings aren't ideal. Here they do have like, all right, top faved, all categories. So at this point, I think the only functional ranking system is whoever has the most faved in certain categories. So if I went into fantasy or maybe teen and young adult, then I should see, the top faved teen and young adult books. And I finally found mine. So mine's 205 and 206 in teen and young adult books. Not awesome, but I'm glad that, I figured out how to find, according to the ranking system, my books in the ecosystem at least. My main concern is like that wasn't that easy for me to actually find. I had to go into, at least on the desktop version, I had to go to top fave and I had to go into the category. Let me look at fantasy and see what it looks like. I should actually try to spread my books out a little bit so they're not all in the same category. So like one is in teen young adult, one is in fantasy, just to make sure I'm showing up in different lists. So I'm here in the fantasy also at 205. So these are the numbers I want to boost up because, no one's really going to skip through. I mean, page 3 isn't that bad, but it's not really that great either. But my point was, here on the home top, you've got featured on Vella, you've got trending, you have top faved, and you can scroll over. So you have to go to see all top faves, and then you have to go to all categories. I just don't think it's something that, it's also really interesting. This says there's only 52 books in teen and young adult and 91 in fantasy. So I'm not sure how I have a rank of 200 and whatever. I think most people will probably scroll down here to popular tags and look through these. And the popular tags list, like I mentioned, doesn't really seem to be based on anything. So I would guess it's the latest releases, like whatever gets published, the most recent published episode with a popular tag is what shows up in that list. So if you were publishing regularly, if you were publishing a new story every day or at least a couple a week, that should keep you at the top of the popular tags, which is sort of nice. If that's the way they're doing it, it means that it's not only a popularity contest, it also rewards consistent content creation, which is kind of what should happen. And that gives an opportunity for the authors who, maybe don't have a big following or a big email list, but they're producing good quality content. Because the other thing that's going to happen is that, the nice thing about Vella, the thing I like a lot, is that big authors you can sell a lot of books with a great cover and advertisements, but there's no real penalty if people don't finish reading the books. Or, once you've got 10 or 20 reviews, you can sell a ton of books without really worrying about engagement or whatever. But here on Kindle Vella, if your first episode doesn't want them to read the second episode, the third episode doesn't make them hook them enough with a story to get them to purchase credits and unlock the fourth episode, then the whole project's going to fail. So it really, I think, gives an advantage to people, not necessarily who are better writers, because I don't like the quality discrimination in using that kind of terminology, but people who can tell a good story that captures attention. So on that point, I'm actually kind of liking Kindle Vella. I don't know if it's going to make any money or whatever. Right now, it's kind of just an experiment, but I kind of like the process already. It's a lot less nerve-wracking I've got a bunch of manuscripts that are like, the first draft of the first book is written, but I don't know if I'm going to finish the whole series. It's going to take me 2 months to edit it. With Kindle Vella, I can basically, every day I can edit and revise a couple of episodes, like 3,000 words. That's about how much I write a day also, if I wanted to. So I could do 2,000 or 3,000 words a day of production and put it up and immediately, get it out there without a lot of fuss. I tend to over polish my books, which that's part of who I am as a writer. I like my books to be, I won't say clean because I know I publish with typos sometimes, but to the level of quality that I want to be known for, which takes a lot of revision to really get to a quality story, like 7 rounds of heavy revision that take me months to finish a book. And the problem is finishing a book, like the difference between the story when it's basically there and those extra seven layers of revision where it's really great and polished, that's not going to make a huge difference in terms of sales through or even reader engagement. Some people, especially the people who are binging on Kindle Vella, they just want a story that holds their attention. They don't necessarily want something that's beautifully polished, slow, oozing, beautiful prose. They just want fun and exciting stuff. So for some pantsers who can tell a good story, whatever that means to you, it's less exhausting and nerve wracking to put content up on Vella. It doesn't feel like such a huge commitment. Of course, that means that a lot of Kindle Vella content is going to be less polished. So I also don't want to be publishing crap or be publishing stuff, that isn't cleanly edited. So like my first draft of my first chapter, it's a little difficult to put that out there because I know by the time I finish editing the book, I'm going to want to go through and edit it all again. But what my basic plan is, you can publish in Kindle Vella exclusively for 30 days is what they ask for, and then you can publish again in Kindle in Kindle. So what I will probably do is publish a full trilogy in Kindle Vella and then turn it into one box set on Kindle Unlimited later. That's sort of my plan. And that gives me a little bit of leeway to publish, not badly, but I can publish quickly and get the story down and get the content out there, make sure people are liking it. And then, I can go back and revise and clean and fix before I do audiobooks or a full box set or the paperbacks if I want to. So let's talk a little bit about marketing. I'll show you some of the things I've done. These are things that I really should do for every launch, but I usually am very quiet about my launches. This is my private Facebook group that's at about 1,000 members. Groups get more visibility than pages, but it's still really not very good. So I just published this yesterday. Now that I have my 3 stories up, I've got links to my stories, and then I made this little banner, which basically is like go claim the free 200 tokens, because rather than go read my story or whatever or more about the story, I made a little graphic that says go claim your free tokens. That's kind of what I'm trying to drive people for. I also put this up as a Facebook advertisement to reach more people because engagement is so bad. I don't know that my ad will do anything. Even when I advertise, it really doesn't get a lot of visibility recently, but I put it up there anyway. I'll spend like $80, $20 a day for a few days just to kind of get this going, trying to drive people, people who have liked my page or people in my group or just people who I think I'm also targeting my website traffic. I have a fiction blog that gets about 1,000 visitors a day. So if I retarget those people, that's a pretty big audience also. So I started with that. I also sent this out to my email list, which is about 10,000, telling them, Kindle Vella is launched, go get your 200 coupons, tokens, and then hopefully, they'll use those tokens to buy my stories. The other challenge that I figured out recently was one of these I've just started and I kind of rushed, like I had to get something up. So I have 3 episodes. 2 of them are really good. I'm pretty happy about this project. But the 3rd chapter, I really just rushed to get something up there. I'm not super proud of it yet, but it's there. It's fine. But all of these are 3 episodes, which means nobody has to pay any tokens to keep reading, which is going to probably hurt me because people aren't buying tokens or not getting the crowns that they would earn, and then they can't crown my book. So I want to get some more episodes up as fast as possible. But one of these is a short story. My short story is like 8,000 words, so I divided it into like 2,500, which means like if it's free for people to read and they don't have to buy tokens to unlock anymore. I think it's probably going to disappear. I can drive my traffic to it right now, but I don't think it's going to stick in the rankings. I don't think people are going to crown it or review it, even if it's just a short story. I'm going to try for now. Later, I could think about splitting it up into 5 sections, like one or even 8 sections of 1,000 words each, just so I have more content there. That might be smarter, even though people would have to pay to unlock more of it. I'll see how that plays out. The other thing I did on my fiction blog, I put up a big post. Basically, I asked the Alliance of Young Adult group on Facebook, and some other groups that I'm part of for their Vella releases. Everybody's really excited and wants to share their Kindle Vella releases. So I picked, I think, like 20 young adult fantasy Kindle Vella to put on my blog, because eventually people are going to be starting to search for, the best young adult fantasy books. That's always a kind of a good popular keyword. So if people are searching Google, they might find my article here. And then in the article, I list a bunch of links to the different Vella projects. But the other thing I did, I put up with a plugin that is the Brave browser. It's kind of like a pop-up plugin. You can see it's kind of broken because it's showing this limited time sale. That definitely shouldn't be there. It should show up as this, which is free tokens. This is just, if they've scrolled through this article, this is at the bottom of every blog post on my website. I noticed when I was looking at this on my phone last night, this looks okay right here, except it's a little cut off over here. And on the phone, this is all too small. You can't really close the box. The button isn't really big enough on a phone. So I might have to redesign this to make it more mobile friendly. And then I also added this pop-up blocker. So when they go to exit intent is, if someone's on your website but they leave, people don't usually stay around your website for more than 20 seconds or so. Often it's even less. So the idea is if 90% of your website traffic is bouncing immediately, you could at least try to show them something. So here I've just put this big offer again, click to claim your 200 tokens. That goes straight to my Kindle Vella story. I had to choose one of them because I don't really have like a Kindle Vella author page. I could have sent them to another page. But here, if they click straight to this page, they will see the offer to claim the story. Hopefully they will claim their tokens and then immediately, follow my story or start reading my story. So even though it's pretty early, I only, made these live like 24 hours ago. I'm not, very happy with my results so far. A lot of these stories have 7 likes, which is fine, but I've tried to, send this out to the 10,000 people on my list, my Facebook page. I think a lot of readers just aren't used to Kindle Vella yet. It's not alluring enough, so there isn't a huge audience, and it's sort of messy to find your way around. So my guess is like at least the way that stuff is set up right now, it's not that easy to find the best stories, especially if the popular tags seem to just be showing whatever random stuff, which I think will burn out a lot of. I'm not saying any of these stories are bad. I have no idea. You can read through and decide, but these are just stories. There's a lot of content. It looks a little bit like Wattpad. Generally, I think it's going to mean that there's just a lot of content, and readers don't have time to try out a ton of content to find something that they like. They need a little bit more guidance to the really good stuff. So I think what's going to happen is that they will either get burnt out from Kindle Vella very quickly, or they will just stick with whatever is, the top faved, and use those top faved category lists to find their way around. So I'm going to keep my eye on this. I'm going to try to move up a little bit higher in the rankings this week and see how that looks. If you would like to help me out, and I can provide more feedback once I get more data. Also, I haven't really talked about, how to write stories for Vella, but it's really similar to all the other stuff I've said in all my other writing resources about writing quality fiction. If you are interested in my writing, if you haven't read any of my novels yet, I've written like a dozen novels or more. Um, but if you want to see specifically the kinds of stuff I'm publishing on Vella, which is different from my novels, especially because like my novels generally have a slow build, and with Vella, you really have to hook them faster. So you have to kind of get into it a lot faster. A lot of authors struggle with backstory or introducing the ordinary world, or just there's a good balance to starting a story well. I've got an article on creativity about starting and ending stories and writing satisfying fiction. I've got tons of stuff on YouTube about how to write better quality fiction. But if you would like, I'm not saying I'm the best writer in the world, but if you'd like to see how I'm doing it, you should look up some of mine. You can claim your 200 free tokens. You can look for me under Drake Mason, which is a pen name that I use. That shows this 8,000 word um, cliffhanger short story prequel. And then this is the beginning of a novel trilogy, which is a little bit slower and a little bit more young adult. I really like this short I wrote. It's very hard hitting, very fast, action paced. This one's a little bit more slow, a little bit more young adult. But altogether, I think it's going to be a strong story once I start putting out more episodes. So this is something I've got 3 books written. I'll just, for the rest of the year, basically, I plan to, rather than splitting this up into different stories, I plan to publish just one massive story with a lot of episodes, which I think is smart because, like I said, I think stuff with more episodes is probably more attractive to readers. On the other hand, I also think it's smart to have more content, which is why I'm dusting off a few other projects where I have like 20 or 30,000 words written that I just have never done anything with. I can put them up on Vella with a nice cover and kind of see if anybody likes them. Anyway, Drake Mason, I'm also under DS Murphy, but you can look for Poison Chalice, which is more of an epic fantasy I mapped out, which I'm also really excited about. It's got a really awesome, it's going to be a really big, I never thought I would write like epic fantasy dragon type stuff. It's not the genre I prefer, but I had a really good idea based on a card game I played with my nieces probably like 3 years ago. I think this is going to be a really solid fantasy series when I finish it. But this is also one like I don't just want to throw up rough, unpolished content. So I may have to figure out a system where I can write ahead and then go back and edit and revise and fix and do all the final polishing stuff. It probably means I have to fix my process rather than doing like many rounds of revision or like my 4-step editing process where I don't get into like the really good stuff like description until later. I'm going to have to figure out how to write better, faster, one chapter at a time, which I'm looking forward to because I want to get a little bit better about panting. I feel like I'm a little too slow as a writer. I finish maybe 4 novels a year, which is not terrible at all, but there's also not really a reason why I couldn't be doing more. If I'm basically doing this full time, I should be able to write a couple thousand words a day, which is 60,000 words a month. That should be possible. I just am not there because I spend a lot of time procrastinating or stalling out on projects. I think Vella, because it's less ambitious, maybe less exhausting. I feel like I may be able to take myself a little less seriously. I may be able to lean into the kind of the social aspect of getting it out there, practicing and publish, at least to get the rough draft finished. And like I said, my first rough draft, it may not be perfect, it may not be everything I wanted to, but it'll be clean and pretty good. So I might just put it up all on Vella faster to get the series finished and then go back through and do some heavy revision before I release it in another format. Let me know about your thoughts or comments. Of course, I'd love your support, even if I don't usually, tell people to buy my fiction if they're not my right audience, if they don't normally read young adult fantasy or fiction, because it'll screw up my also bots on Kindle. However, here in Kindle Vella, I don't think I'm worried about that. So if you just want to check it out and see what kind of fiction I'm writing for Vella, of course, I would be happy for you to take a look at it and crown something if you've got crowns to spend. Anyway, that's my pitch and my review of Kindle Vella. Let me know what you think about it and if you've got any content on Kindle Vella or your experience of Kindle Vella. If you've figured some things out that I haven't mentioned, I'd love to hear them. Thanks. Bye bye.